There's someone outside. It's a phrase you never want to hear, especially when you're home alone at night and something doesn't feel right. Tonight, we're diving into 3 terrifying true stories from people who thought they were safe in their own homes until they looked out the window and saw something or someone staring back. These aren't just ghost stories. These are real experiences from real people, each one scarier than the last. So lock your doors, check the windows, and whatever you do, don't look outside. This is Mr. NightMutter, and here are 3 very scary true someone's outside horror stories. It was the dead of winter in rural Pennsylvania, the kind of cold that froze the breath in your lungs and left the night air-heavy with silence. Sarah, a college junior, on winter break, had volunteered to house-sit her grandparents' old farmhouse while they were away in Florida. At first, it seemed like a peaceful escape from school stress, a quiet place to read, drink tea, and enjoy the snowy solitude. The farmhouse sat on several acres of land. No neighbors for miles, no traffic, no streetlights, just wide fields covered in snow, surrounded by woods that always seemed darker than they should be. It was beautiful during the day, peaceful, but at night, the silence became suffocating. On the 4th night, just after 10 p.m., Sarah was curled up on the living room couch, a warm blanket over her legs, a mug of chamomile tea in hand, and an old black and white movie playing softly in the background. Everything felt still until it wasn't. Tap. It was soft, almost too soft to notice, but it was definitely there. A single tap against the window over the kitchen sink. Sarah sat up slowly, her heart skipping. She muted the TV. The room fell into near-complete silence. Her eyes locked on the kitchen, now dimly lit by the glow of a wall sconce. Tap. This time it was louder, more intentional, like a fingertip or a nail lightly knocking. She got up cautiously and walked into the kitchen. Her hand hovered near the light switch, but something stopped her. Instead, she inched toward the window and tried to peer through the curtain. Her breath caught in her throat. There was something standing just outside. A dark silhouette, tall, perfectly still, not moving, just watching. Sarah's first instinct was to turn on the porch light, but she stopped herself. Whoever or whatever it was, she didn't want them to know she'd seen them. She backed away and hurried to her phone. No signal. Of course. The farmhouse was notorious for dead zones unless you stood by the attic window, and even then the reception was spotty at best. She tried calling out, "Hello?" But there was no answer, just silence. And when she cautiously peeked back out the kitchen window, the figure was gone. But that didn't mean it had left. She crept up the stairs, heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. From the upstairs bedroom, she looked out into the snowy yard behind the house. And that's when she saw it. The figure was now standing in the backyard, just a few feet from the back door, still motionless, not approaching, not retreating, almost like it was waiting for something. Panic began to take over. She remembered the old shotgun her grandfather kept locked in a cabinet near the staircase. He always said it was just for emergencies, and this definitely counted. She hurried downstairs, opened the cabinet, and found the gun, but no shells. Useless. By the time she returned to the window, the figure had vanished again. She checked every door and window, all locked, all secure, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. She kept every light in the house off that night and sat in the hallway with a kitchen knife in hand, her back pressed against the wall. Every creak of the old floorboards, every groan of the wind outside felt like a threat. She didn't sleep, not a second. When morning finally came, she ran to the door and flung it open, stepping into the cold with trembling hands. What she saw stopped her in her tracks. Bare footprints, dozens of them. Human, unmistakable. No shoes, no socks, just bare feet pressed into the snow, trailing in from the tree line at the edge of the property. They led to every single window of the house. The kitchen, the living room, the guest bedroom, even the upstairs windows. But what chilled her to the core wasn't just where the footprints went, it was where they didn't. There were no prints leading away, not a single one. just a haunting path that ended right beneath the window she had stared through the night before. To this day, she doesn't know who it was, or how they disappeared without leaving a trace. Local police came and looked around. No leads, no signs of forced entry, just footprints that shouldn't have been possible. She never returned to that farmhouse alone again. And every winter, when the snow falls and the nights grow long and silent, she swears she can still hear it in her dreams. Tap, tap, someone or something just outside. Michael and two of his closest friends, Ryan and Luis, needed a break. City life had worn them thin. Deadlines, phones, traffic, it was all becoming too much. So they planned a getaway deep in the woods of Oregon. A rented log cabin tucked in the middle of nowhere. No internet, no phone signal, no distractions. Just peace, fresh air, and isolation. When they arrived, the sun was dipping low, casting golden light through towering pine trees. The cabin was small but cozy, with a wood-burning stove, creaky floors, and a wraparound porch that faced miles of forest. It was perfect. That night, they cooked dinner over a fire pit, told jokes, and shared stories. The kind of bonding only nature could offer. There were no neighbors, no cars passing, not even a hint of civilization, just the sound of the wind in the trees and the occasional owl hoot in the distance. By the second night, the novelty of the quiet had turned slightly eerie. It was around midnight. The others had already gone to bed, snoring softly in their bunks, when Michael stepped outside to use the outhouse behind the cabin. The cold hit him immediately, sharp biting. His flashlight beam cut through the trees as he made his way across the clearing. That's when he heard it. Crunch. Footsteps. Not his. Not an animal either. Too heavy. Too deliberate. He froze, light scanning the trees. Probably a deer, he thought. Maybe a raccoon. But then he heard it. A voice. Hey. Just one word. Calm. Way too calm. Not a greeting. Not a shout. Just a soft, steady hey, spoken like the speaker was already far too close. Michael spun around, flashlight darting between the trees. Nothing. No movement. No figure. But the voice hadn't come from far. It had sounded close. Very close. He didn't wait. He sprinted back to the cabin, slammed the door shut, and locked the deadbolt. His chest was heaving. Sweat had broken out down his neck despite the cold. Ryan stirred awake, mumbling groggily, "What happened?" Michael told them everything. The footsteps, the voice, the eerie silence that followed. They brushed it off. "You freaked yourself out, man," Luis said, still half asleep. "It's the woods. You probably heard an echo or something." Michael didn't argue, but he didn't sleep either. An hour passed. The fire in the stove had died down. Only embers remained. The cabin was quiet except for the soft wind against the windows. Then, knock. 3 knocks. Slow, measured, heavy. Not like someone knocking politely. More like someone announcing they were there. The 3 of them sat frozen in their beds, eyes wide in the dark. No one spoke. No one dared move. Another knock never came. They stayed that way, silent, still, and terrified for what felt like an hour. Then, slowly, they drifted into an uneasy sleep. When morning came, they opened the door cautiously. The cold morning air hit them like a wall, and the forest looked normal, still serene. But then they saw them. Muddy handprints. Dozens, all over the windows. Some smudged, as if whoever made them had been dragging their fingers across the glass. Others were sharp, clean prints. Large, human. But here's the terrifying part. Some of them were too high for anyone to reach without a ladder. And there were no ladders. One print stood out in particular. It was at the top of the window over the kitchen sink, nearly 8 feet off the ground. Luis pointed out a set of faint footprints in the mud outside. They led from the woods straight to the porch, but they didn't go back. Michael snapped photos with his phone. They didn't know what else to do. When they packed their things and drove to the ranger station down the trail, they shared what had happened. The ranger, a gruff man in his 60s, listened quietly. Then he sighed, looked out the window, and said, "You're lucky. That's not the first time someone's reported something like that out here." Michael blinked. "What do you mean?" The ranger shrugged. People hear things, see things. We've had hikers vanish off trails. Sometimes campers come running out of the woods, swear they were being watched all night. Every couple years, someone sees handprints like the ones you're talking about. Did you ever catch whoever it is? Luis asked. The ranger paused. There's no one to catch. They didn't ask for more. On the drive back to the city, none of them spoke much. Michael kept checking the rearview mirror, because as far as he could tell, they never really found out who was outside that night. Or what. It started with a note. Just a harmless-looking sticky note. Clara was 26, living alone in a small apartment complex just outside Chicago. She'd moved in a few months ago, her first place on her own. It wasn't fancy, but it was cozy. She loved the independence, the late-night shows, the quiet coffee mornings, the freedom to live without compromise. But independence would soon turn into something darker. That Thursday morning, Clara left her apartment around 7:30 a.m., just like usual. She was halfway down the hallway when she noticed it. A sticky note, bright yellow, stuck to her door. It read, "You have a beautiful laugh." There was no name, no smiley face, no indication of who had left it. Just neat, tidy handwriting, simple and chilling. Clara paused for a moment. Creeped out? Definitely, but she shrugged it off. Maybe it was someone from the complex, a harmless flirt. Weird, but not threatening, yet. That night, she locked her door tight, double-checked the windows, and reminded herself it was probably nothing. But it didn't stop. The next morning, another note. "You always make the same tea. Green jasmine, right?" That one made her stomach turn. Her tea brand wasn't something you'd casually notice. It meant whoever was leaving the notes had been watching her closely inside her kitchen window. Clara called the building manager. She explained the notes and asked if the security cameras in the hallway were working. "Nope," he said. "Still broken. Budget cuts. Sorry." She went back to her apartment, nervous but trying not to spiral. Maybe it would stop. Maybe it was just a sick joke. But that night, she heard it. A click. It was soft, almost hidden under the sound of her movie. She muted the volume. There it was again. A faint click coming from the door. Then a scraping sound like metal brushing against metal. Someone was trying to pick the lock. Clara grabbed a flashlight and quietly crept toward the peephole. Her heart was pounding so loudly she could barely think straight. She looked. No one. Just the hallway. Empty. She turned on all the lights. Slept with a kitchen knife under her pillow. She didn't know what else to do. The next day, she stayed home from work and installed a makeshift security system. A string of bells over the door, a chair wedged under the knob, even a baby monitor she had left over from babysitting her cousin. That night, she stayed up. Midnight came, then 1 a.m., then 2:12. Ding. The bells. She froze. Someone was at the door. Not knocking, not speaking, just standing there, silent, waiting. She tiptoed to the peephole again, and this time she saw him. A man, dressed in all black, hoodie pulled tight, face blurred by the angle, but he was definitely staring straight at the peephole, as if he knew she was watching. She stepped back, grabbing her phone with trembling hands and dialing 911. "Someone is trying to get into my apartment," she whispered. "I can see him." The dispatcher told her to stay on the line. Within minutes, sirens howled in the distance. Red and blue lights flashed through the window. She looked again. He was gone, just vanished. The police found no sign of forced entry, no fingerprints. But outside her door, taped to the wall, was one final note. "You locked the door tonight. Smart girl." The handwriting was the same. Calm, almost playful. The officers were disturbed. They filed a report, took a statement, and promised to patrol the area more frequently. But Clara knew. She moved out 2 days later, packed everything she owned into her friend's SUV, and never looked back. But something still haunts her. She didn't recognize the man's face. She hadn't seen him before, which meant he had been watching her long before she ever noticed, not just from the hallway, not just through the windows, but maybe from inside. Some nights, she still wonders, what if the door hadn't been locked that night? What if the bells hadn't rung? What if she hadn't looked through the peephole? She might not be here to tell the story. There's a reason stories like these stick with us. Because deep down, we all fear the idea that something or someone could be outside, watching, waiting, choosing the perfect moment to strike. Whether it's the middle of the woods or a city apartment, horror doesn't care where you live. So if you hear a knock at night or see something move in the corner of your eye, don't look outside. This has been Mr. NightMutter. And if you want more true horror stories, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss the next nightmare. And remember, what you can't see might already be seeing you.